Welcome to Gardens of Time, and let's talk about pelargoniums. Well, these are plants that are often thought of as geraniums, and sometimes they're called scented geraniums. It's going to get confusing really fast because geraniums and pelargoniums are both in the family Generaceae, and they are related, but they're not the same plants. We're going to look at it a little bit later, but we'll see that both of them have 5 petals, but in the case of the pelargoniums, they have 3 petals on the bottom that are smaller and 2 petals on the top that are going to be different than the bottom petals. Now, they are part of our Victorian garden, and they come from many places in the world, but especially from South Africa. And around 1600, the first pelargonium were introduced to Europe, and it was the Leiden Botanical Gardens in the Netherlands that they first arrived. Later, they were taken to France and England by cuttings, and then they proliferated over many parts of the Western world during the Victorian era. As political changes happened in Africa, people took to creating cultivars, hybridizing them, and they were very, very popular during this time. Let's take a look at some in our garden right now. I'll just turn our camera around and we can see the beautiful big bunch of flowers in front of our gate here, and that is the scene that the pelargoniums bring to the garden. They are often used as bedding, and they're really prolific in their flowering. They have so many flowers right now and so many pollinators as well. The bees are loving them. There are as many as 280 different species. So that's a lot. We have 3 in our garden now. Let's take a close-up look at some of these, okay? All right, hi Diane out there. I'm so glad you could join us today. Let's take a close-up look at some of the individual flower clusters here. Great, and as you can see, we were talking about these being differentiated from geraniums because of the petals that are different on the top and the bottom. Let's see if we can zoom in on a flower there. And on these you can see that the 3 petals on the bottom and the 2 on the top have pretty similar coloration, but the petals on the top have the really deeply purple lines in the veins going towards the center of the flower. And there's another one next door. Let's take a look at this one. Center on these flowers here, or take it to these right here. Just gorgeous. And here you can see a real distinction between the coloration on the top 2 petals and the bottom 3 petals. What gorgeous colors, what gorgeous flowers. But the thing that I love about the pelargoniums right here is the way they smell. And let's see, these light pink ones, they smell really citrusy, like lemony. And the darker flower over here smell rosy. They have really distinctive smells, and I'm crazy about different scents, different smells in the garden. And one whole subcategory of the pelargoniums are the scented pelargoniums. So I love having these. Their scents even go to smells that are reminiscent of chocolate. How fun is that? Another subgroup we'll visit because we have a new little flower in our garden here. We're going to go across and visit it. Well, one of the varieties, the subgroupings of the pelargoniums, is the the fancy leaved varieties. Look at this here. My coworker Stephanie just transplanted this recently, and look how gorgeous that is, with the really pink flowers and the leaves that have a dark red in the middle and yellow on the outside. A fancy leaved pelargonium. And you can see the clusters of flowers here are much thicker than the others. So we're going to bring it back to a view of our Victorian garden. You'll see a couple places where we have smaller plants, pelargonium plants. Those came from cuttings. They grow so easily from cuttings. I say that because I've done it successfully, and I'm not really good at that. But I can do it with the pelargoniums, with the scented geraniums. We'll get some of them into our view shed, and I wanted to tell you that herbalists have used pelargoniums for a full array of complaints, including intestinal problems, kidney and liver cures, and respiratory ailments. Of course, during the Victorian times, they took off all over Europe and the Western world, but then and even now, they continue to be really popular in California. Even though they were so easy to grow, they became really common, very ubiquitous, and not highly prized as garden plantings. They were seen as kind of common. They're still very popular in California, and you know, our Mediterranean climate is so similar to that in South Africa that a lot of plants that originated there continue to grow really well in our gardens. This is part of our little Victorian garden, and those are some of the plants that you'll find in it. Things that the Neary and Nolan family around here and their colleagues of the time enjoyed planting here in Santa Cruz in California. Well, the name Pelargonium, pelargos, comes from the Greek word for stork, and that's named after the seed heads of the plants. Because of the season right now, these plants are in full flower, and we don't have a single seed head to show you. But here's my hope, is that someday, maybe even in the fall, we'll be open again, and you can come visit these plants, visit our garden, smell them for yourself, and see the stork-shaped seed heads that these flowers have. I hope you get a chance to visit them for yourself, and I hope you have a chance to be in a garden this May.